Steve Harvey had been hosting Family Feud for over 17 years, and throughout that extensive career, he had become intimately familiar with the rhythm and flow of human emotion during game show competition. He understood how laughter could build through a series of humorous answers, how tension could mount as families approached the threshold of victory or defeat, and how celebration could explode when contestants achieved their goals. However, his experience had also taught him that the most powerful moments in television often occurred when emotions shifted unexpectedly, when laughter gave way to something deeper and more profound, when a seemingly lighthearted game suddenly revealed the weight of human struggle and the power of compassion to transform lives. What transpired on that summer afternoon in July 2025 would exemplify this phenomenon in ways that would leave an indelible mark on everyone present and would create a moment of television that transcended entertainment to become something genuinely sacred. Before examining this extraordinary moment in detail, if you appreciate content that demonstrates the transformative power of unexpected kindness and the importance of supporting those who are struggling in silence, please take a moment to engage with this material by liking and subscribing to our channel. We share narratives that remind us of our shared humanity and our capacity to change lives through genuine compassion and timely intervention. The Davis family from Memphis, Tennessee stood ready to compete against the Parker family from Atlanta, Georgia. The Davis family consisted of 53-year-old Patricia Davis, her adult son Marcus, who was 28, her adult daughter Keisha, who was 25, Patricia's sister Gloria, and Patricia's mother Helen, who was 76 years old. From the opening moments of the game, the Davis family brought infectious energy and humor to the competition. They laughed easily, supported one another enthusiastically, and engaged with Steve's questions and commentary with quick wit and obvious enjoyment of the experience. The game proceeded through its initial rounds with the kind of light-hearted fun that characterized the show at its best. Both families provided answers that ranged from perfectly strategic to hilariously incorrect, and the studio audience responded with genuine laughter and appreciation for the entertainment unfolding before them. The Davis family in particular seemed to delight in making Steve laugh, providing answers that were just unexpected enough to catch him off guard and trigger his characteristic reactions of mock disbelief and exaggerated surprise. Patricia Davis emerged as the clear star of her family's performance, demonstrating sharp strategic thinking combined with a natural comedic timing that had Steve and the audience laughing throughout the game. When she provided correct answers, she celebrated with elaborate gestures and playful victory dances that drew cheers from the crowd. When she gave incorrect responses, she owned the mistakes with self-deprecating humor that somehow made the errors even more entertaining than the successes. The chemistry between Patricia and Steve was particularly strong, with both of them clearly enjoying the repartee and the competitive banter that made for excellent television. As the game progressed, the Davis family accumulated points steadily and maintained their lead over the Parker family through strategic play and fortunate survey instincts. The atmosphere remained light and joyful, with laughter dominating the emotional tenor of the episode. However, during a break in filming, when production crews were resetting equipment and preparing for the next round, something occurred that would fundamentally transform the nature of what everyone was experiencing. Steve had developed a habit over his years of hosting of using commercial breaks to chat informally with contestants, asking questions about their lives outside the narrow scope of game show competition. During this particular break, he asked Patricia about what she did for work and how she had managed to get time off to travel to the studio for filming. Patricia's answer, delivered casually at first, revealed circumstances that immediately shifted Steve's perception of everything that had occurred up to that point. Patricia explained that she was currently unemployed after having been laid off from her job as an administrative assistant 6 months earlier when the small company she had worked for closed its doors due to bankruptcy. She had been searching unsuccessfully for new employment throughout those 6 months, facing the dual challenges of age discrimination in hiring and a local job market that offered limited opportunities for someone with her skill set and experience level. She mentioned that money had become extremely tight for the family, that she had been making impossible choices between necessities, and that the trip to the studio had only been possible because her sister Gloria had paid for the travel expenses as a gift. Steve, sensing there was more to the story, gently encouraged Patricia to continue. What she revealed next would be the moment that transformed laughter into tears throughout the entire studio. Patricia explained that she had recently received an eviction notice giving her 30 days to vacate her apartment because she had fallen behind on rent during her unemployment. She was facing homelessness and had been trying to figure out where she and her adult children, both of whom lived with her and were struggling with their own employment challenges, would go when the eviction deadline arrived. She said that participating in Family Feud had been her mother Helen's idea, a last desperate hope that they might win enough money to pay the back rent and avoid losing their home. The weight of this revelation settled over the studio like a physical presence. The laughter that had filled the space throughout the game suddenly seemed hollow in retrospect, a brave performance masking profound fear and struggle. Steve stood completely still, his usual animated energy replaced by visible emotion as he processed what Patricia had shared. The production crew, the audience members who were close enough to have heard the conversation, and the other contestants all seemed frozen in recognition of the gulf between the joy they had been experiencing and the reality Patricia had been carrying while performing that joy for their entertainment. When filming resumed, Steve made a decision that departed from standard game show protocol. Rather than simply continuing with the competition as planned, he asked if he could share something with the audience. He explained that during the break, he had learned information about the Davis family's circumstances that had changed his understanding of what their participation in the show meant, and what was at stake for them beyond the typical game show prizes. He asked Patricia if she was comfortable with him sharing what she had told him, and when she nodded her agreement through tears that had begun flowing as soon as he started speaking, he recounted for the studio audience and the cameras the reality of her unemployment, financial crisis, and impending eviction. The transformation in the studio atmosphere was immediate and profound. What had been an audience enjoying lighthearted entertainment became a community of people confronting the harsh realities of economic insecurity and housing crisis that affected millions of Americans but remained largely invisible in public discourse. The laughter that had characterized the game stopped completely, replaced by the sound of people crying openly as they absorbed the courage it had required for Patricia to maintain her humor and grace while carrying such overwhelming fear and burden. Steve addressed Patricia directly, his voice thick with emotion that he made no attempt to hide or control. He told her that he was both humbled and inspired by the strength she had demonstrated throughout the game, maintaining joy and humor while facing circumstances that would have broken many people. He acknowledged that what he had interpreted as natural comedic talent and competitive spirit was actually a profound act of courage and dignity, a refusal to be defined or diminished by her struggles, even as those struggles threatened to destroy the stability she had worked her entire life to create for her family. He then made an announcement that would become one of the most memorable moments in Family Feud history. He explained that watching Patricia laugh and entertain while carrying the weight of impending homelessness had moved him in ways he could not fully articulate. He said that he could not in good conscience allow the game to continue as mere entertainment when he had the power and resources to address the crisis facing the Davis family. He announced that regardless of the outcome of the competition, he was personally guaranteeing that Patricia would not lose her home. He committed to paying her back rent, covering several months of future rent to give her time to find employment without housing pressure, and providing additional financial support to help stabilize the family's circumstances. The studio erupted in applause and tears, with audience members on their feet celebrating not Patricia's game show performance, but Steve's compassionate intervention and his willingness to use his platform and resources to address real suffering rather than treating it as backdrop to entertainment. Patricia collapsed into Steve's embrace, sobbing with relief and gratitude that had clearly been building throughout months of fear and impossible choices. Her children and mother surrounded them both, creating a tableau of family support and collective release of tension that had been carried far too long in isolation and silence. Steve was not finished with his intervention. He explained that he had made phone calls during the extended break and had arranged for Patricia to interview with several companies in Memphis that had employment opportunities matching her skills and experience. He had contacted a career counseling service and arranged for Patricia to receive professional support in her job search, including resume updating, interview preparation, and networking assistance. He had also connected her with a financial counselor who could help her develop strategies for managing money and building emergency savings once she achieved employment stability. The game did continue after these announcements, though the competitive element felt almost irrelevant given what had already transpired. The Davis family played with visible relief and renewed energy, the weight they had been carrying now shared with and supported by others. The Parker family, rather than viewing themselves as competitors, became active supporters of the Davis family's success, clearly hoping Patricia would win additional money beyond what Steve had already committed to providing. When the Davis family ultimately did win the game and advanced to fast money, the celebration was genuine and joyful, but carried undertones of recognition that the real victory had already occurred through Steve's intervention. During the fast money round, Patricia and her son Marcus answered questions with focused determination, and when their combined score proved sufficient to win the top prize, the emotional release throughout the studio was extraordinary. People who had been laughing carelessly hours earlier were now crying tears of joy and relief for a family they had come to care about deeply through the revelation of their struggle and the witnessing of their courage. The monetary prize Patricia had won through game play, combined with Steve's personal contribution and the various support services he had arranged, represented a genuinely transformative intervention that would change the trajectory of the Davis family's lives. After filming concluded, Steve spent additional time with Patricia and her family, learning more about their specific circumstances and ensuring that the support he had arranged would actually address their needs effectively, rather than serving as temporary relief that left underlying vulnerabilities unaddressed. He learned about Patricia's work history and skills, about her children's educational backgrounds and employment challenges, and about the broader context of economic struggle in their community that made their situation common rather than exceptional. When the episode aired 4 months later, the network preceded it with an introduction from Steve explaining that viewers would witness something extraordinary, a moment when the laughter of game show entertainment gave way to tears of compassion and solidarity. They provided information about housing assistance resources and employment support services, recognizing that Patricia's story would resonate with countless viewers facing similar circumstances and hoping to connect those viewers with help that might make a difference in their lives. The response to the episode was immediate and overwhelming. Social media platforms were flooded with reactions from viewers who had been moved to tears by Patricia's courage, Steve's compassion, and the visible transformation of a studio audience from entertainment consumers to engaged community members supporting someone in crisis. Thousands of people shared their own stories of facing eviction, struggling with unemployment, or hiding financial desperation behind brave faces, because acknowledging struggle felt like admitting failure in a culture that equated economic hardship with personal inadequacy. The episode sparked important conversations about housing insecurity, unemployment among older workers, and the reality that millions of Americans were one job loss or one unexpected expense away from homelessness despite working hard throughout their lives. Advocates for affordable housing and employment rights used Patricia's story to illustrate the systemic issues that created individual crises, noting that her situation reflected policy failures and economic structures rather than personal failings or poor choices. Patricia herself became an accidental spokesperson for people experiencing housing insecurity and employment discrimination. She shared her story at various events, describing the shame and fear that had accompanied her job loss and financial crisis, the exhausting work of maintaining appearances while facing potential homelessness, and the transformative impact of having someone with resources and influence recognize her struggle and respond with immediate material support, rather than platitudes or judgment. She reported that Steve's intervention had indeed changed her family's trajectory in profound ways. The breathing room provided by having rent covered and knowing she would not lose her home had allowed her to focus on her job search with clarity and purpose rather than the desperate urgency that had characterized her previous efforts. She had secured employment within 6 weeks of the Family Feud taping through one of the connections Steve had facilitated, and while the new position did not pay as much as her previous job, it provided stability and benefits that made it sustainable. Her children had also found employment through networking and resources they had been connected with as part of Steve's comprehensive support package. The financial counseling she had received had taught her strategies for managing money and building emergency savings that she wished she had known decades earlier. She emphasized in interviews that while Steve's generosity had rescued her family from immediate crisis, the education and resources had equipped her to avoid future crises by creating financial buffers and making informed decisions about spending and saving. She said that the transformation had been both material and psychological, changing not just her bank account, but her understanding of her own worth and her right to ask for help when struggling. Steve Harvey spoke about the experience in numerous subsequent interviews, describing it as one of the most important moments of his career. He explained that Patricia's laughter during the game, which he had initially enjoyed as natural charisma and humor, had taken on entirely different meaning once he understood what she had been carrying while performing that laughter. He said that the realization that she had been facing homelessness while making him and the audience laugh had been simultaneously heartbreaking and inspiring, revealing both the harsh realities many people navigated in silence and the extraordinary resilience of human beings who refuse to be defined by their struggles. He spoke about the responsibility that came with having a platform and resources, acknowledging that he encountered people experiencing hardship during every taping of his show, but that most of those struggles remained invisible because people learned to hide them behind competent performances of normalcy. He said that Patricia's willingness to share her truth when he asked about it had created an opportunity for intervention that he felt morally obligated to act upon, and that her story had reminded him to look more carefully at the people he encountered and to create more opportunities for them to share what they might be carrying beneath their public presentations. The incident prompted reflection throughout the entertainment industry about the relationship between entertainment programming and the real lives of people who participated in that programming. Some producers began implementing more comprehensive support systems for contestants, recognizing that people who appeared on shows were often experiencing challenges that the competitive format did not accommodate or address. Family Feud specifically developed protocols for connecting contestants experiencing crisis with resources and support, ensuring that the show could respond helpfully when people like Patricia revealed struggles that warranted intervention. Several years after the episode aired, the story of one moment turning laughter into tears remained a cultural reference point in discussions about hidden struggle, the importance of looking beneath surface presentations, and the power of compassionate response to change lives. The image of Patricia laughing and dancing during the game, viewed in retrospect with knowledge of what she had been facing, provided a powerful reminder that many people carried burdens invisible to casual observers and that competent performance of happiness or normalcy revealed nothing certain about internal reality or circumstances. If this examination of hidden struggle and the importance of compassionate intervention has provided meaningful perspective, please support our channel by engaging with this content through likes and subscriptions. Share this story with others who might benefit from understanding that people around them may be facing crises while maintaining brave faces, or who might need encouragement to ask for help when struggling rather than suffering in isolation. Consider how you might create opportunities for people in your life to share what they are carrying, and how you might respond with genuine support rather than judgment, when struggles are revealed. In a culture that often equates economic hardship with personal failure and that celebrates individual resilience while ignoring systemic barriers, let us remember that asking for help is wisdom rather than weakness, and that offering help when we have the capacity to do so is basic human decency rather than exceptional virtue. Steve Harvey's response to Patricia's revelation remains a testament to the difference that can be made when people with resources choose to use them in service of others rather than merely in service of their own comfort or accumulation.